What are some of the key areas that really made Salina grow?
Okay, there are three areas in any community for development. There's government, whether it's international, national, state, or local. And second, it's the communication, transportation, commerce, the economy of an area. And the third important point is pivotal to all of this is the people, their culture, their quality, their attitude. So those make the difference in the economic development of Salina, Western Ohio.
All right. And tell me a little bit about that first area. What was a really pivotal point for that?
Well, this area, it's been influenced by international intrigue from Connecticut to Europe, and France and England were in contest for North America because of the fur trade. In fact, as early as 1755, Great Britain drew a map of Northwest Ohio, and it's at University of Michigan, this huge map. But here there's a site in Mercer County that's mentioned called Halfway Cross, and that would be the crossing at St. Mary's River. It's halfway between Pickawillany and Kikianga. Pickawillany would be near the village of Piqua, south of us, and Kikianga is the village of Fort Wayne, and that halfway cross at the crossing of St. Mary's River is on that map. Therefore, New, France and England wanted this area, and the Indians had the area, so that became the contest. Going on from that, another international point would be in 1815, Captain James Riley from Connecticut took his ship and his sailors to the Caribbean in trade, and then they went to Gibraltar in trade, and they got caught in the fog off the coast of Africa, and the Arabs captured them, held them for ransom. They got back to the United States, and ultimately it was his son who platted Salina, and his grandson, who was beginning with the banks and built this Mercer County Historical Museum. His great-grandson then joined the oil well diggers here, the oil well drillers, and went to Alaska on the gold rush. And his daughter, Lena Riley, was the last Riley to live here, and that's how it became the Mercer County Historical Museum. All this is international intrigue.
All right. Two, transportation, commerce. There were big areas that are really making this area grow some more.
Yes, as President Jefferson wanted to develop the interior for transportation and communication, here in the Northwest Territory, after the Revolutionary War and the United States was becoming established, they established the Ordinance of 1785 and 87, and they were going to develop the states here, of which Ohio was one state. And they were talking about the development of the canals and the settlement of this area. However, as the Europeans moved into this area, the Indians, Native Americans, did not, this was their land, and it became a contested area. So President Washington sent General Harmer in the United States Army north from Fort Washington, that would be Cincinnati area, and he was repulsed by the Indians as he got closer to Kikianga, which would be the Fort Wayne area. Then President Washington sent General St. Clair north with the United States Army. And of course, everyone is aware of the great defeat at the Battle of at the banks of the Wabash River, which is Fort Recovery now. And then President Washington sent General Anthony Wayne, and he built a whole series of forts along the western side of Ohio, of which Mercer County had Fort Recovery and Fort Adams. And Anthony Wayne and his troops met with the Battle of the Fallen Timbers near Maumee, and that was the turning point of the Indian Wars. The Treaty of 1795 was held at Greenville, Ohio, with all the Native Americans involved. Therefore, the Fort Recovery Minster Road became the treaty line from the fort at Fort Recovery over to Fort Laramie and points southeast and points west. But north of this treaty line was still Indian lands. Even when they said Ohio was a state in 1803, the land in northwest Ohio belonged to the Native Americans. And then the War of 1812 to 1814 took place. They were still fighting this. After the War of 1812 and 1814 was when they had treaties with the Indians, the different Native American tribes of this area. These were international treaties because the nations of Indians, the nations of Native Americans were a nation of their own. So therefore they had international treaties of 1817 and 1818, one at Maumee at the foot of the rapids and the other one here at St. Mary's just east of us. Therefore, after these treaties were settled, the people wanted to move in here. The government wanted to open this for settlement. Therefore, in 1820, there were a certain number of counties established here in northwest Ohio. On paper, they were drawn up. And the county of Mercer County was attached to Darke County from 1820 to 1824. Meanwhile, on paper, the Miami and Erie Canal and the canals of Ohio were being drawn up. And the people in the know knew that there was going to be a lake here for a reservoir for the Miami and Erie Canal. And they went and platted the village of St. Mary's in 1823. And when Mercer County was separated from Darke County in 1824, St. Mary's became the county seat. And Captain James Riley's son, James Watson Riley, lived there. Now, he was in the know. So he saw the commerce, the communication, opening up the canal. So he platted Salina in 1834 for economic reasons. The canal was the transportation. And as the canal was open from Lake Erie to Ohio River by 1845, here in Salina, the communication, the Daily Standard, its earliest newspapers were started in 1848. So the economy developed right here following the canals coming here, the settlements coming here, and the Irish were digging the canal. They went on north, but there were also people from Germany who came here. They worked on the canal. They gained enough money to buy land. The census of Mercer County in 1820 was in Darke County. The census in Mercer County in 1830 was 1,100. By 1840, the census was 8,200. You can see the tremendous influx of people coming up from the canal. It may not have been all the way to Toledo, but they were moving north from Cincinnati to Hamilton to Dayton on up through this area. So that brought in the settlement of this area in Mercer County. Meanwhile, in the northern part of the county, through the St. Mary's River, from Lake Erie down to Fort Wayne and down the St. Mary's River, people were migrating into northern Mercer County, and they were like 5th, 6th, 7th generation from New England states. So we've got a real mix of cultures moving into Mercer County, and Salina is in the center. It's on the edge of both of these cultures coming together. So that shows the international influence of the development of the economy with commerce, transportation, communication, economic development.
All right. And finally, I mean, another thing that really makes one of Mercer County and Salina really good is the people. And tell me a little bit about the people and why it makes this area so prosperous, and the fact that there's such low unemployment rates because of the people right here.
Okay, as I mentioned about communication and transportation, in the 1880s, 3 railroads crossed Mercer County, and they converged here at Salina in the 1880s. Then in 1886 was the oil boom. It brought in a whole new group of people with Standard Oil, Marathon Oil. They invested in this area. People moved in from other areas. It brought in new cultures here. And then in the 1890s, the towns grew, all these towns grew. But if it weren't for the people, the economic growth, the stamina of the people, the work ethic of the people, the belief that they could do anything, there were all kinds of family businesses started. Like in 1900, Merceman Furniture started here in Mercer County. The stearic acid plants started. Crampton's Cannery started. The lumber industries, and all these family businesses. You walk down Main Street of any town, and these small communities, these were family businesses. This lasted until the 1990s, about in the 1980s, when these large industries were buying out the smaller industries. They bought out Merceman's and closed Merceman's. They bought out New Idea, closed New Idea. They bought out Huffy's, closed Huffy's. And you would think that might have destroyed the economic development in Mercer County. But this is when the people really stood up and showed what they were worth. All these generations, they've been teaching their family. This just didn't happen. Since the first people came here, they believed in good schools, religious standards. They built churches, they built schools, they built their homes, they built businesses, and they worked there, they developed them. And when the national places came in, the large business and industries came in and bought out these places that they were so dependent on, it took a little bit to get their act together, and they started in specialized businesses, specialized industry to serve specialized needs that these international or national companies weren't supplying. So there's a very low unemployment rate in Mercer County. And one other thing that's interesting, back in the 1950s, after World War I, during World War I, the men were in Europe fighting or around the world fighting, and women were asked to help in industry. Now, as I read the New Idea history, I see the men there making fun of the women starting the work, and the women saying, hey, we didn't want to come work here. You're the ones who asked us. And they started this to turn a bolt, right or left. They'd say, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. And they would laugh at the women. But those women survived. And they found out they could work in business and industry. And in the 1950s, the latter half of 1950s, cars. Boys in high school had jobs, service stations, and worked on farms, and they bought cars. These are the first generations that women had cars. They drove. They didn't have to wait for somebody to hitch up a horse and buggy and go. These are families with more than one car, more than one vehicle, and the men had trucks and cars. So this changed the face of Mercer County. Women became really involved in industry and education. In the 1960s, the Western High Education Foundation established a college here with Ohio Northern University. That evolved to become a branch campus of Wright State University out here on the Lake campus. People here believe in education, and this is still continuing. I attended a program last month where the lady who's starting a new nursing program working with the hospitals and the medical industry that Wright State is establishing. Mercer County is moving forward, Salina moves forward, the people move forward, and there's one other thing that's very important that everyone takes for granted. That's the volunteer part of Mercer County. You look in every community and every organization, you look at the volunteers that make the organization possible. Here at this Mercer County Historical Society, it wouldn't exist without the volunteerism. When I retired in 2004, the commissioners didn't hire anybody. We have volunteers who take care of things. Now, the combined drive of Salina, it serves 20-some service organizations like the American Red Cross, American Cancer Society, the Mercer County Cancer Society, the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the Center for Neurological Center at Burkesville. All of these service organizations that you can think of, the people in Mercer County raise money on this combined drive, and they don't charge a dime for it. You look at across the United States and you see United Way, or you see all these big organizations that the head person is organizing all this. That head person takes a bundle of money out of the money raised. The volunteers here in Mercer County do not charge a dime. Every organization, every business, every church, every school depends upon the volunteers of this county. That shows the high standards and the belief in working for their community. And they are not loafers on the job. Volunteers come early, they work hard the entire day, they leave late, they stay until the job is done, and you can't find a better worker than a volunteer in Mercer County. And that shows what kind of people we have here.
All right. Beautiful. Thank you very much.